I never thought kindness could cost me everything until this envelope changed the way it looked. To do this. I can't take this from him.
I'm not doing this because I have to, Sienna. I'm doing it.
I never thought kindness could cost me everything, until the day a billionaire's check made my mother collapse in tears. The envelope sat heavy in my hands, heavier than anything I'd ever held. Inside was a number so big it didn't feel real. 6 zeros stared back at me like they were mocking every double shift I'd ever worked, every bill I'd paid late, every night I'd gone to bed hungry so my daughter could eat. Across from me stood Preston Caldwell, the kind of man who owned buildings taller than my dreams, and beside him was his daughter Iris, smiling for the first time since I'd met her 3 months ago. My mother stood in the doorway of our cramped apartment, one hand pressed against her chest, tears streaming down her face. I didn't know if she was crying because we were finally safe or because she knew what it meant to accept this kind of gift from a man like him. "You don't have to do this," I whispered, my voice cracking. But I wanted him to. God, I wanted him to so badly it hurt. Preston's jaw tightened. "I'm not doing this because I have to, Sienna. I'm doing this because you saved her when I couldn't." My mother made a sound, half sob, half gasp, and suddenly I was back in that hospital room 6 weeks ago, watching Iris seize on cold linoleum while doctors shouted words I didn't understand. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family, enjoy the story. But this wasn't about gratitude. This was about something deeper, something that terrified me more than poverty ever did. Because men like Preston Caldwell didn't just give. They owned. And I'd spent my whole life making sure nobody owned me. "There's a condition," he said quietly, and my stomach dropped. Of course there was. 6 months earlier, I was drowning. Not the kind of drowning where you scream for help. The quiet kind, where you smile at your daughter over cereal and pretend the eviction notice isn't burning a hole in your purse. I worked 3 jobs. Morning shift at the diner on Maple, afternoons cleaning offices downtown, nights doing data entry for a company I'd never even seen. My daughter Becca was 8. My mother was 72 and getting sicker by the day. The pharmacy kept calling about her prescriptions. I kept not answering. The day everything changed started like any other terrible day. Mom had fallen again. This time in the bathroom. I found her on the floor, too weak to get up, too proud to call for me. "I'm fine," she kept saying, even as I helped her back to bed with shaking hands. I wasn't fine. We weren't fine. And I was running out of ways to pretend we were. That afternoon at the diner, my manager Greta cornered me by the coffee station. "There's a family looking for in-home care," she said, sliding a business card across the counter. "Rich people. Real rich. They need someone good with kids. Someone patient." She gave me a look that said she knew I needed the money and wasn't going to ask why. The address on the card was in Thornhill Heights, where houses had gates and people had drivers. I'd never been past the entrance. I called the number that night, fingers trembling. A woman answered, crisp voice, no nonsense. "The position requires live-in care 5 days a week for a 7-year-old girl with cerebral palsy. Experience preferred but not required. Mr. Caldwell values character over credentials." I had plenty of character. It was credentials I was short on. But desperation makes you bold. "When can I start?" The Caldwell estate wasn't a house. It was a statement. Stone pillars, manicured hedges, a fountain in the driveway that probably cost more than my entire life. I stood at the front door in my cleanest jeans and a borrowed blouse, clutching my purse like a shield. The woman who'd hired me over the phone, Mrs. Vance, the estate manager, answered with a tight smile. "You're early. Good. Mr. Caldwell appreciates punctuality." She led me through hallways lined with art I didn't recognize and furniture I was afraid to touch. Everything gleamed. Everything whispered money. Then we reached a sunroom at the back of the house, and I saw her. Iris. She sat in a wheelchair by the window, staring out at the garden with an expression so lonely it made my chest hurt. 7 years old with dark curls and her father's sharp cheekbones. Her hands rested awkwardly in her lap, fingers curled tight. She didn't look at me when I walked in. Didn't acknowledge me at all. "Iris has good days and bad days," Mrs. Vance said quietly. "Today is a bad day. Her father is in meetings until 6. You'll be responsible for her meals, physical therapy exercises, and keeping her engaged. Any questions?" 1,000. But I just nodded. Mrs. Vance left, and it was just me and this little girl who wouldn't look at me. I pulled up a chair, sat down beside her. Didn't try to force conversation. Just sat there, looking out at the same garden she was staring at. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Finally, I spoke. My daughter's name is Becca. She's 8. Loves frogs. Won't stop talking about them. Drives me crazy. I paused. You like frogs? Iris's left hand twitched. Not much, but enough. Birds, she whispered, voice so soft I almost missed it. I like birds. I smiled. Then let's go find some. Getting her outside took 20 minutes and every ounce of patience I had. But when we finally made it to the garden and a blue jay landed 3 feet away, Iris laughed. A real, full laugh that sounded like music. That's when I heard footsteps behind us and turned to see him for the first time. Preston Caldwell. Tall, sharp suit, face carved from stone. He stood there staring at his daughter like he'd just witnessed a miracle. And maybe he had, because Mrs. Vance told me later that Iris hadn't laughed in 8 months. Preston watched me like I was a puzzle he couldn't solve. For 2 weeks, I showed up every morning and left every night, and he barely said 10 words to me. But he noticed everything. The way I'd sing to Iris during her exercises. How I'd sneak her extra dessert when she finished her vegetables. The stories I'd make up about the birds in the garden. Each one with a name and a personality and a grand adventure. Iris started talking more. Started smiling. On good days, she'd ask to go outside before I even suggested it. On bad days, when her body wouldn't cooperate and frustration made her cry, I'd hold her hand and tell her about my own bad days. The ones where nothing went right but we survived anyway. One evening, as I was packing up to leave, Preston stopped me in the hallway. Up close, he looked exhausted. Shadows under his eyes, tie loosened, the kind of tired that lives in your bones. Why do you do this? He asked abruptly. The job. No, the way you do it. Like she matters. The question hit me wrong. Made me angry. She's a little girl. Of course she matters. His expression cracked, just for a second. Her mother left 2 years ago. Said she couldn't handle it. Handle her. His voice dropped. I've hired 12 caregivers since then. None of them lasted more than a month. They were professionals, educated, experienced. But you, he stopped, shook his head. He was surrounded, cornered by the life he was trying to leave. And this time, I was standing right in the middle of it. Riven didn't fight back the way everyone expected. He handed over evidence. Names. Records. Secrets powerful enough to collapse entire networks. He burned bridges he'd built with blood. He told me he was done running the world. He just wanted a chance to live in it. The fallout was immediate. He became a target from every side. But something changed. For the first time, his power didn't come from fear. It came from choice. He turned himself in, not as a kingpin, but as a man ready to face what he'd done. I held his hand as they took him away, knowing I might never see him again. He looked back once and mouthed 2 words. I'm free. I walked out alone, unsure if love could survive consequences this big. Unsure if I should even hope. And hope can be dangerous when the world is watching. Waiting is its own kind of punishment. Months passed. Then years. I built a quiet life, helped people who didn't know my story, carried his with me like a scar that still ached in the cold. Then one afternoon, I got a call I never expected. He was out. No empire. No shadow army. Just a man with nothing but time and regret. When I saw him again, he dropped to one knee. Not to ask forgiveness. To ask permission. To love me without chains. I said yes, but not to the past. To a future built slow, honest, and fragile. We chose peace, knowing it could still be taken. As we stood together, I wondered if the world would let us keep it. They expected revenge. They didn't expect a wedding. We kept it small. No headlines. No guards. Just sunlight and quiet laughter. His daughter walked him down the aisle, strong on her own 2 feet, smiling like a miracle that refused to fade. I didn't marry a boss. I married a man who learned that real strength is walking away. If this story moved you, share your thoughts in the comments. I read them all. Your words matter here. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss another story about love surviving impossible odds. And if you've ever had to choose between power and peace, know this. Choosing love doesn't make you weak. It makes you free. My mother had congestive heart failure. Advanced stage. The doctors said she'd been hiding symptoms for months, not wanting to burden me. I sat beside her hospital bed holding her hand, watching machines breathe for her, and felt my entire world collapse. The treatment she needed cost more than I'd make in 5 years. Insurance would cover some, but not enough. Never enough. Preston found me in the hospital chapel at 2 in the morning. I was praying to a God I wasn't sure listened to people like me. "How is she?" he asked, sliding into the pew beside me. "Dying." The word tasted like ash. "They're saying weeks. Maybe a month if we're lucky." He was quiet for a long time. "Then, there's a specialist in Boston. Dr. Una Chen. She's pioneering a new treatment. Experimental, but the success rate is promising." I laughed, bitter and broken. "I'm sure it costs a fortune." "It does. But I've already made the arrangements. Dr. Chen will see your mother next week." I turned to stare at him. "Why would you do that?" "Because you gave everything for my daughter without thinking twice. Because you told me love saves people, and you were right. Because," he stopped, jaw working. "Because I'm falling in love with you, Sienna, and I don't know how to stop." The words hit me like a physical blow. "You can't," I whispered. "We're too different. Your world, my world, they don't fit. Then we'll build a new world. One that fits us both." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But fairy tales didn't happen to girls like me. Rich men didn't fall for broke single mothers. This was temporary, a moment of gratitude that would fade when reality set back in. "Your family will never accept me. Your business partners, your friends. I don't belong in that world." "I don't care about that world," he said fiercely. "I care about you. About Iris. About building something real." Before I could respond, a nurse burst into the chapel. "Ms. Torres? Your mother's awake. She's asking for you." I ran. Preston followed. We found Mom sitting up in bed, oxygen mask askew, eyes wild. "Sienna," she gasped. You can't give up everything for me. Not again." "Mom, stop. Save your strength." "No." She grabbed my hand with surprising force. I heard what he said. "That man, he loves you. And you love him too. I see it." Tears streamed down her face. "Promise me. Promise you won't let me be the reason you don't choose happiness." "You're not a reason, you're my mother. Promise me." I looked at Preston, then back at Mom. "I promise." She relaxed, sinking back into the pillows. That's when the monitors started screaming. Nurses flooded in, shouting medical terms I didn't understand. Preston pulled me back as they worked on her, his arms the only thing keeping me upright. And I realized that loving him wasn't a choice anymore. It was survival. He was the only solid thing in a world that wouldn't stop spinning. Dr. Chin saved my mother's life. 3 surgeries, 2 months of recovery, and a miracle that came with Preston's name attached. He paid for everything, arranged everything, and never once made me feel like I owed him. But I did. I owed him everything, and that debt was suffocating. Iris was thriving. She'd started a new therapy program, made friends at a special needs school Preston enrolled her in, and talked about me like I hung the moon. Becca and Iris had become inseparable during Mom's hospital stay. 2 kids who understood what it meant to fight for normal. And somewhere in the chaos of hospitals and hope, Preston and I had fallen into something that looked a lot like love. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was playing a role in someone else's story. Living in his guest house, eating meals his chef prepared, wearing clothes that didn't come from thrift stores. I was Cinderella at the ball, and midnight was coming. One night, Preston found me sitting in the garden where I'd first made Iris laugh. "You've been avoiding me," he said, sitting beside me on the bench. "I've been thinking. About how I'm not the woman you should end up with. You need someone who understands your world. Someone who..." He kissed me, soft and desperate, and full of everything we'd been dancing around for months. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. "I don't need someone who understands my world. I need someone who makes me want to leave it. You and Iris, you're the only real things in my life. Preston, marry me." The word stopped my heart. "What? Marry me? Not because you owe me. Not because of Iris or your mother or any practical reason. Marry me because when I imagine my future, you're the only person I see." He pulled a ring from his pocket. Simple, elegant, nothing like the ostentatious wealth I'd expected. This was my grandmother's. She was a factory worker who married a farmer. They had nothing but each other, and somehow that was everything. "I want that. With you." I stared at the ring, then at him. At this man who'd somehow seen past every wall I'd built. "Your business partners will think I'm a gold digger. I'll fire them. Your family will say I trapped you." "I don't have family. Just Iris. And she's already calling you Mom." That broke me. I started crying, ugly tears that came from somewhere deep. I'm scared, I admitted. Scared I'll wake up and this will all be gone. That you'll realize I'm just a broke single mother who got lucky. He cupped my face in his hands. You didn't get lucky. You got brave. You chose to see me, really see me, when everyone else just saw money and power. You saved my daughter, and then you saved me. His voice dropped to a whisper. Let me spend the rest of my life returning the favor. I said yes. Not because of the money or the security or any logical reason. I said yes because for the first time in my life, I believed I deserved to be loved. Not for what I could give, but for who I was. That's when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. A woman's voice, cold and sharp. Is this Sienna Torres? Yes. This is Victoria Caldwell, Preston's ex-wife. And we need to talk about my daughter. Victoria Caldwell was everything I wasn't. Polished, educated, beautiful in that untouchable way rich people perfect. She showed up at the estate 3 days after Preston proposed, dressed in designer everything, with a lawyer and a stack of papers that made my stomach turn. You've done well for yourself, she said, looking around Preston's study like she still owned it. Landed the billionaire, playing mommy to his broken daughter. Very convenient. Preston stepped between us. Get out, Victoria. Not until I get what I came for. She tossed the papers on his desk. Iris, I want custody. The room went silent. Preston's face drained of color. You abandoned her. You have no rights. I was sick. Postpartum depression, undiagnosed mental health issues. My therapist will testify. I'm better now. Ready to be her mother. Victoria's smile was razor sharp. And unlike your girlfriend here, I can actually provide the stability a disabled child needs. Education, social standing, a mother who isn't working 3 jobs to survive. I felt like I'd been slapped. You don't know anything about me. I know you gave him $30,000 when his accounts were frozen. I know you swooped in during his lowest moment and played savior. Classic gold digger move. She looked at Preston. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? I still have friends on your staff. Preston's hands were shaking with rage. You will never get near Iris. I'll fight you with everything I have. Then you'll lose your company. Because my lawyers already filed claims about your assets being tied up in the acquisition. Any hint of financial instability, and your board will force you out. You'll spend years in court, burning through money, while your daughter watches you destroy everything. Victoria leaned forward. Or you can make this easy. Give me supervised visitation, generous child support, and public acknowledgement that I'm her mother. And I'll go away. I saw the trap close around Preston. Saw him calculate costs and consequences. Saw him realize she'd planned this perfectly. If he fought, he'd lose time with Iris while courts decided. If he agreed, he'd be tying himself to Victoria forever. Unless, take me instead, I said quietly. Everyone turned to stare at me. What? Preston asked. She doesn't want Iris. She wants money and revenge. So give her what she actually wants. I looked at Victoria. I'll walk away. Leave Preston, leave Iris, disappear completely. And you drop the custody suit. Sienna, no. Preston grabbed my arm. I pulled away gently, eyes still on Victoria. That's what you really want, isn't it? Me gone. Proof that women like me don't get fairy tale endings. Victoria studied me like I was a bug under glass. Then slowly she smiled. You do that? Give up the mansion, the money, the ring, all of it. If it means Iris stays safe? Yes. Something flickered in Victoria's expression. Surprise, maybe. Or respect. She looked at Preston. You really believe she'd walk away from all this? I know she would, Preston said quietly. Because she's not you. She never was. The words landed like a punch. Victoria's composure cracked, just for a second. I saw the hurt underneath, the jealousy, the realization that Preston had found something real with someone she'd convinced herself was beneath them both. Fine, she said finally. Keep your little saint. But when she gets tired of playing house with a damaged child and a workaholic father, don't come crying to me. She grabbed her papers and walked out, heels clicking like bullets. The silence after she left was deafening. Preston pulled me into his arms, holding on like I might disappear. You were really going to leave. I was really going to stay, I corrected. That's what love means. Protecting the people who matter, no matter what it costs. He kissed me then, deep and grateful and full of promise. And I knew with absolute certainty, that this was where I belonged. Not because of money or security, but because this man and his daughter had taught me that I was worth fighting for. If you've made it this far in our story, I need you to do me a favor. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever had to choose between love and security? Between what's safe and what's real? Your stories matter, and I read every single one. We got married 6 months later in the garden where everything started. Small ceremony, just the people who mattered. My mother walked me down the aisle, healthy and glowing in a way I'd stopped believing was possible. Becca was my maid of honor, Iris was the flower girl, and when Preston saw me in my simple white dress, he cried. The man who'd built empires and closed billion-dollar deals cried because I was walking toward him. The vows were traditional, but when it came time for our personal promises, Preston took my hands and said, "You taught me that strength isn't about control. It's about surrender. Surrendering to love, to trust, to the terrifying possibility that someone might see all your broken pieces and choose you anyway. You chose me, Sienna. You chose us. And I promised to spend every day earning that choice." I couldn't speak through my tears, so I kept it simple. You saw me when I was invisible. You made me believe I deserved to take up space in the world. And you showed Iris that being different isn't the same as being broken. That's the greatest gift anyone's ever given me. I promised to never let either of you forget how extraordinary you are. The reception was everything I'd never dreamed of, because I'd never let myself dream that big. But the best moment came later, when I found Preston and Iris on the dance floor. He held his daughter carefully, swaying to music only they could hear, and she was laughing, that same bright sound I'd first heard in this garden. When she saw me watching, she reached out. "Mom, dance with us." "Mom." Not Sienna. "Mom." I joined them, the three of us moving in a small circle while fairy lights glowed overhead, and my mother watched from her table with tears streaming down her face. Happy tears this time. Tears of relief and joy and gratitude for a future none of us had seen coming. Later, after guests had left and Iris was asleep and my mother was safely tucked into the guest house, Preston and I stood on the balcony overlooking the garden. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "Giving up that money? Taking a chance on us?" I thought about the girl I'd been 6 months ago, drowning in bills and fear, and the belief that happiness was something other people got to have. Then I looked at the life we'd built, messy and imperfect and more real than anything I'd known. "The only thing I regret," I said, "is all the years I spent believing I wasn't worthy of this." He kissed my forehead. "You were always worthy. You just needed someone to remind you." But that wasn't quite right. I'd needed to remind myself. To choose bravery over safety, love over fear, hope over the cynicism life had taught me. Preston and Iris had given me a reason to fight for something better. But the fighting, that had been all me. My mother's words from the hospital echoed back. "Don't let me be the reason you don't choose happiness." I'd made that promise, and keeping it had saved all of us. Because healing isn't just about fixing what's broken. It's about recognizing that sometimes the broken pieces fit together in ways that make something stronger than the original. 3 years later, Iris took her first unassisted steps. The doctors called it a miracle. We called it determination. Either way, watching her walk across our living room into her father's arms while Becca cheered and my mother cried and Preston looked at me like I'd given him the world. That was the moment I knew we'd made it. Not despite the obstacles, but because of them. Every hard choice, every sacrifice, every moment of doubt had led us here. To this family we'd built from broken pieces and second chances, and the stubborn belief that love was worth fighting for. So if you're watching this and wondering if it's worth it, worth the risk, worth the fight, worth choosing hope when logic says run, I'm here to tell you it is. Every single time. Thank you for being part of our journey. If this story touched you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. We've got so many more stories about love, second chances, and the courage it takes to choose happiness. Share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me about a time you chose love over fear, or when someone saw you when you felt invisible. Your stories inspire others more than you know. Remember, kindness isn't weakness. It's the strongest thing you can choose to be.